So, gentlemen, thanks for being here tonight. And I'd like to start off by finding out a bit about yourselves. Where are you from? Who are you? We can start with Wiaan.
I'll start. Where's Richard? He's up. So you told this earlier, you spoke about the water and the acidity and the gout thing. So I thought about a story. I just wanted to open with it, sort of break the ice. So I'm in head office probably about a month ago. And we've got these coffee stations where people now in their offices walk to these coffee stations. And there's this Indian guy, he's an IT programmer. And he seems like quite a fitness guy because he's walking around with a big bottle of water there. And he's chatting to another lady that's working in our office. And what I could surmise from the conversation that she's either a fitness instructor or very into fitness, and she's quite detailed, and they know each other. So he was discussing with her the amount of water that he actually drinks in a day. So he says to her, you know, I drink water every day religiously, and things are going quite well, but of late he's not feeling too well. She says, but do you drink in the morning first thing? And where do you get your water? Now I filter it, things like that, so everything checks out. And do you exercise? Yes. Do you replenish afterwards? Yes. No, that's fine. And this conversation goes on, and I'm standing making my coffee, and then the question pops up. So how much water do you drink a day? And he says, 12 liters. And I'm like, She says, I think you have a problem. You know, you can overdose on water. So, quite a laugh, but that just came up in my mind when Richard mentioned this earlier on. But yeah, no, thanks for the intro. My name is Wiaan. Thanks for allowing us to be here. Such a fantastic evening. We were looking forward to this. From my side, yeah, born and bred in Cape Town. Grew up there, northern suburbs, and left Cape Town in, finished school in 1990. And I started off in the old postkantoor, before the old telecom days, you know, and before cell phones, all these other things. I like that type of technical stuff, and I was recently in an article also where we spoke about, my mother always said, you know, I like to take things apart, and there were always parts left, but it worked afterwards, and I was quite into the watches type of thing. So I like the technical aspect of it, but yeah, I started my career off in the old postkantoor, did my studies through them, and very technically driven. Then in 1996, you know, the cellular industry sort of like formed a couple of years before that. And the people that I was working with in that environment, you know, those were the founding members of the cellular industry, and that was always to see, you know, this is the place to go. And this is like the next thing, what you want to do. And at that stage, I was working in what we used to call the radio environment, the waves. And 1996, I got this opportunity. Let's just move from Cape Town. I'm going to go to Pretoria. And here's this boykie from Cape Town. I've never been to Pretoria in my life. You know, I've always traveled around there, very traditional. Yeah, got in my car on Sunday. The Monday, rocked up on Sunday evening in Pretoria. And then the Monday started off working there with Vodacom in 1996. Did a very technical career over there up until the end of 99. And you know, with the millennium, things were changing quite a bit around in the technology field, and especially in the cellular game. It was quite interesting times. There was a lot of hype. You know, where do we go next? Technology sort of like driven. And this opportunity popped up for me to go and work in another country as an expat. So once again, get on a plane, Iberia, 1999, November. Never forget it. The guys were still smoking on the airplane. It was a big, almost like a thick curtain on the airplane that they used to close, and you could stand inside there. Yeah, it was terrible. Anyway, so got on this plane off to Spain, get off in Spain, transit over into Morocco, back in Africa again. Ended up in a place called Casablanca, and did a stint over there building networks. You know, it was with a German company, Siemens. Yeah, from there I left to go explore another country. Popped over to Turkey with a US company, Motorola. did some more technical work over there. You know, South Africans are very well known for their not just entrepreneurial skills, but also for, especially in technology, also multifaceted approach to business, and also to be able to execute, especially in those years. That South Africans are very sought after skills-wise. We think outside of the box. We're not very confined. And it was a great advantage for us also, those who had the opportunity to go abroad. Popped over to Turkey, worked over there, traveled around a little bit in different cities, did some, you know, once again, some technical network set of setups. And then I moved back to South Africa as an expat, working on a bid for the company that I work for now, CLC, but it was working for a French company. So I was hopping around between Europe, France, and South Africa for a company called Nortel Networks up until 2001 when CLC was formed. And then, yeah, I joined CLC. This could be a long story, so I'm just going to end it over there.
No, that's good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, to you, Danie.
So I can just say my picture is on a bottle, with on bottled water. My mum always said I was born a little star. Yeah, look here, look here. It's amazing. Right, I was born on a farm. My father went bankrupt. For some reason, we started to move to Jeffreys Bay. I started schooling in Jeffreys Bay. I can't surf. Promise you I can't surf. My dad died young. I was raised in a relatively poor household. And from very early on, I understood entrepreneurship. I understood making money. And I started my first business when I was 5 years old. And I sold water paint depictions of life, which is absolutely crap. It was cute little houses and stick people and my version of a clown and a smiley sun. I sold them for 10 cents a piece in 1978. Gee, I had a lot of money. And I very early on realized that my paintings was a means to an end. There was no internet, there was no automation, there was no games. So we had battery-powered vehicles. And a very scarce commodity was batteries. So I knew exactly between me and a set of batteries would be 4 paintings or 5 paintings. Eventually, we moved around, I matriculated, and I followed my goal to varsity. I had no idea what to study. And I asked around for what's the easiest course. There's no psychology. Psychology is very easy. So I came to university for all the wrong reasons. It was a joll, eh? And I was one of the best students, not academically. I ticked all the boxes. Eventually, I ended up with a master's degree. All right, long story short, after my 3rd year, I got a bursary from the World Health Organization. I got no reason why. I was actually the only guy doing medical sociology. That's why I got the bursary. Then I did my honors degree, and they gave me some pocket money and a computer. One of those big computers, and I was like, gee whiz, I need to, and they sponsored my master's degree. And I ended up with a master's degree in medical sociology. I've got no idea what it means. I still don't know what medical sociologists do. I worked for 2 or 3 years at the Center for Health Systems Research and Development. Gee whiz, I got no idea. Then I decided at some stage, I need to get myself out of trouble. I need to start studying again. And I did a master's degree in higher education. And it tickled me. I've worked with the Belgian government, and we started building online learning systems, learning management systems. Quite interesting, and I got bored about that again. In the meantime, I started a clothing factory in Cape Town. I started a consulting company. I started a couple of other businesses. And eventually, I did my master's degree with my MBA. And I founded the Center for Business Dynamics, which is the commercial unit at the business school. And then new management came along, and they replaced the entrepreneurial culture within the university with a toxic bureaucracy. And after a year of shouting and fighting, I just one morning walked into my office, opened my mails. I think it was at the 3rd email. I just closed my computer and I said, listen, I'm done with this. I went up to the director at that stage and said, listen, I'm gone. So are you crazy? I said, no, I'm gone. I left, got home, and I told my wife, listen, for all practical reasons, I'm unemployed. She went hysterical for about half an hour. I calmed her down. And but my purpose at that stage was really to make a difference, and I founded Young Entrepreneurs, and that's why I'm here tonight.
Splendid. So what I'm hearing from you is you guys have done quite a bit. You've been to a couple of places. How did you adapt with change and keep abreast of everything that was happening in technology and your circumstance?
Sure. Let me start here. You know, I still remember the days. Obviously, being in this industry, you you see it not from the consumer sort of point or the customer sort of point. I see it like behind the scenes, what's happening. So I still remember, before GSM or the mobile sort of phones we had right now, there was a old system called C450. You know, those were these big, heavy telephones in. That's probably, if I can think about, let's call it 93, 94 about. These big phones, they used to cost tons of money. You used to walk around with these bags, and all of it was just battery with this handset on top. And we were the technical teams that were servicing and implementing these type of things. And it was always great, you're a youngster walking around with a telephone, and you would sit there somewhere, and just make this phone call. But the only person you could phone was your mother at home type of thing, because nobody else could afford this, that you actually have this phone. But yeah, I mean, from those days to where we are right now, that's one of the biggest challenges that we have in technology. The rate of change and how technology sort of evolves. And it's not sort of how do you keep up to this, it's how do you keep track of it. It's a big thing, and you just need to keep track of what's actually happening, because if you want to stay ahead of the curve, it's extremely difficult. You have to just keep your ears on the ground, be attentive about what's happening around you. You have to focus on what you actually want to achieve. Just stay focused at the end of the day. Technology is a great thing. I always say to people, by the way, let me just ask this question. Does anybody in this room know anybody that does not own a cell phone? Oh, great. I normally get this. Yeah. So, yeah, none of us actually know anybody that does not have a cell phone. So the days of it actually being a luxury is gone. It's part of your life. It's actually part of your ecosystem. Whatever you do, it's part of our lives. And you have to keep track of that the best way that you can. And all of these is about, just staying aware and just keeping up with whatever you can at the best of times.
Oh, it's a difficult question. No, I'm joking. The only thing is, technology is one of those things from an entrepreneurial perspective that's an enabler. It enables you. As with anything in life, I mean, it's not a straight line. Everyone thinks entrepreneurial and being entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship is just a straight line. It's not. And technology, like all other, in a sense, facets within the entrepreneurial mindset, all the attributes, the whole basket is about what enables you, what ways and means to differentiate yourself. And we spoke about, I think Annie mentioned earlier when we had to chat outside, if we had the technology what you kids nowadays have, if we had access to that technology, if we had the internet, I mean, we had salesperson, my mum would buy me a set of encyclopedias. It was a set of 24 or something. It was absolutely crazy. It took it 2 years to pay it off. So if we had to technology, it's enabler, and I don't think kids really understand the privilege that they do have to have access to the internet, have access to Google. It's a huge privilege, and one must use it as enabler. And like I always say, I've got issues around education, our education system, the varsity system, and I always say, if you give me a day, and I can tell you more about any topic than what I would normally learn in a conventional setting for over 6 months.
So I'd like to go into your journey in business and entrepreneurship. Was there a turning point, an aha moment, I found the right thing? Because I think the dilemma that we're facing today with millennials is we're confused. you know, we're chasing passion, there's all these buzzwords sort of flying around, and we're just waiting for that, aha, this is what I should be doing. So would you say that you just persevered through everything that you persevered to till you found what it is that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I come from a very strong, a very focused sort of technical environment. So it's been an evolution and a journey for me from where I was until where I come today. But I like talking to people. I talk a lot, and I love interacting with people, mingling and creating conversation and just listening, especially older people. I think it just enriches me to talk to people, because when you're in a rut sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have to always think about this, is that you are not the first and you won't be the last person to be in this sort of environment that you are right now. There's people that have actually passed through this environment. And the best way to actually get advice is to talk to people who have actually been there. And normally these are older people. And so I embrace that also from a young age already, like to act into conversation around this. But coming back to my own personal experience is just over time I've evolved from a very strict discipline into something else where you want to actually lead people and actually get the best out of people and get that satisfaction from changing people's lives and having making impact. We as an industry also have evolved, and I think Danie, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, it's all about enabling. We create experiences. Whatever business you are in, you have to think about how do you enable an experience out there. A simple example, the fact that you can actually speak on a phone and actually talk about this, an experience to talk to your mother, father, friends, whoever it is. The fact that you have a cell phone to be able to do that is just an enabler. Movies, anything like that. And I actually, in my move 6 years ago into Bloemfontein, that was a big turning point for me, also moving from a very strict discipline over into a more fluid environment, where we restructured our business to get much closer to our customers and also to the consumer. So it changed in terms of new environment, new people, commercial environments, marketing environments, things like that. All this has to pull together. And it's very enriching, it's very tough, it takes a lot of focus. Also, you feel that you're at the top, but you're never there. But yeah, the thing is though, is that you just have to keep your head high. You have to focus on what you want to do and just make sure that you enjoy the experience as you actually go along.
Oh, I actually started joking that my mum said I was born a star, and then the school system started making me a square. Well, they actually tried their best making me a square. And my world first came tumbling down at the end of grade 2, when they took play away. So the moment that they took play away, I became the rebel, the naughty child. I never fit it in with the school system. What drove me was fear. Fear with regard to I never wanted to be like my family. And that sounds awful, I know. But that actually drove me. And it took me many years to realize that if your focus is money, we'd rather not go into business, because that's simply not sustainable. And it took me a couple of years to really understand that you need to be driven by passion and purpose. It doesn't matter what age you are, what's your passion, what's your purpose, what makes you smile, what makes you get up in the mornings. I always imagine if you are in a house, if you're a 3 or a 4-year-old in a house, on Sundays you hear, oh, geez, tomorrow is Monday. Oh, goodness, tomorrow is Monday. And on Thursdays you hear, yeah, gee whiz, tomorrow is Friday. Hey, tomorrow is Friday. What message do you send out? How can you live a life when you dread every Monday morning and you're looking forward to every Friday? It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's the message that we send out to our kids. So my best advice to anyone that wants to pursue business, go into business, is your passion, your purpose, making a difference, making the life better, and to really enhance the lives of people around you. To solve problems for other people, and if that drives you, then you're on the right track. If your primary drive is money, then you've got a problem.
Okay. And talking about being in a rut in your life, coming crashing down in grade 2, and you can decide if you want to share both or if one wants to take the other. Would you mind sharing a couple of highs and lows of your journey?
Sure. The lows I tend to forget. If one comes up now, I'll mention it. All right. So I think one of my the most interesting journeys, when I at the end of 1999 I left South Africa and actually went to work up in Morocco. It was a complete mind shift for me, culturally. The level of responsibility that was actually installed upon me as I was a youngster then, and very clever technically. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to hit this type of thing. I'm going to go over there and just nail it. And you get there and there's 20 people standing there relying on you to actually take leadership. So I think, oh, I'm very clever, but I'm going to lead these people, get them to do what I want to. They don't even speak my language. So, and then you sort of like work around it. And in that country, in Morocco, I was based in Tangiers. It's on the most northwestern point of Africa. If you go and Google it, you'll see it's like a little dot coming out there. On a clear day, you actually stand on the beach and you look across there and you see Europe, Gibraltar, the Mount of Gibraltar over there. And when you go across with a ferry into Europe onto the mountain there, you can actually see the African continent. But that was a fantastic high, and that's where I think my biggest step into leadership sort of came for me, which was a very, very high point, is you arrive in this country, you're working with people, it's very foreign for you, you're very clever, but you don't know how to carry over the knowledge. What do? You get an interpreter. So I had a guy there, his name was Muhammad, okay, and funny name for Arabic country, but anyway, Muhammad, and he was my driver, but he could speak French, Arabic, English, Spanish, Portuguese, what else? Everything that I could dish up, he could speak. And but he was a keen guy. He drove like an absolute maniac. They've got these blue Mercedes 220 diesels, and we used to drive. I sit at the back, and we go. And I don't know what it was. When we arrive at a corner, they would overtake. This is not how we do it back home, but okay, you sit back and the second week you say, chap, this is not on, I've got a few scares here. And they used to go, inshallah, as we go around the corner all the time. So eventually I asked him, what does this mean? So he says, no, we've got wolves around the corner, but you're overtaking on the corner. He says, look, if it's my time, it's my time. I don't care if it's on a corner or on a straight. And I said, not with me, chap. It doesn't work. Anyway, but I worked with this guy, for almost a year. And when I left the country, he was one of my close confidants, very, very close confidant, in that we were extremely close, did everything today. I trusted him fully in terms of my communication, how to get across in terms of the project. My success was very reliant on what he did. And we trusted each other very well. And I eventually saw that, this guy's actually got the ability to do something better. And I started pulling him in. I said, listen, let's help me out a bit with this, bit of a technical setup, learning how to use a computer on my own time. And he sort of progressed. And when I left there, he was a driver / operations and maintenance technician. And we still keep in touch over the years. And I mean, this has been now, almost 20 years now. And he actually evolved into becoming a technical team leader and a manager over time, obviously. And to today, I still get a lot of satisfaction. It was a very, very high point for me early on in my career. There's a lot of things that happened after that, which I'm very proud of. But I think that was the first and the key thing that happened that triggers a lot of things in me to actually take things further going from there in 1999.
Splendid, thank you.
Yeah, I must honestly say, lows in my life, I don't regard them as lows, and it might sound like a cliche. I've got many highs. I regard myself as a rainmaker. So So my biggest highs in life is to create something out of nothing. So I'm a conceptual thinker, I'm a systemic thinker, and I can really create a business model out of nothing. The majority of them failed, if I may say so, but some of them actually worked. And that's the highs, it's just to create something, and I think it's that entrepreneurial drive that you have, that entrepreneurial mindset, is to create something out of nothing. The lows I see as opportunities. I've got a deathbed mentality. I'm glad to be here every morning. I'm glad to serve. I'm glad and I'm thankful to make a difference. The lows in life are there for lessons. Learn the lessons. You know, early on in my life, I had to take the decision whether I want to be a tomato or a rubber ball. If you throw a tomato on the ground, it stays there. If you throw a rubber ball on the ground, the harder you throw it, the harder it bounces back. And that decision I had to take when I was very, very young. And I always decided to be a rubber ball. So you can throw me as hard as you want. I don't see it as a low. I'll just bounce back. I mean, that's just my mentality, and that's always been my mentality.
That's awesome. So one of the questions we always ask our speakers, and that is, why Bloemfontein? You know, there's this whole perception of, I've actually had people arrive in Bloemfontein touring artists, and it's like, so many people here. You know, like, the national perception of what Bloem actually is scary. So why do you choose to stay here? Everybody just wants to get out.
Before I get on to Bloemfontein, I thought about something that Danie said now, and it sort of triggered me. And you know, about getting up in the mornings also, maybe just a sort of like thought from my side. So I've got 2 daughters, and it sort of links on with the whole Bloemfontein. I've got 2 daughters, and I have the privilege every day now to take them to school. So we have a set time. Normally we get into the car at 7, sometimes at 7:15, and it's got a bit of trauma in between. Anyway, but when we arrive at school, every now and then I'm just sort of like, hey, when you guys woke up this morning, and you ask yourself the question, is there anything going to prevent you from being successful today? And then I would say, no, Dad, not. Cool, cheers. Here you go. So I ask them that question, you know, and then I see that they think about it. And that's great, you know, to remind yourself every day, like, is there anything going to prevent me from not being successful? And if you can't have a reason for that, I mean, why not? Make a difference. To come back to why Bloemfontein, moved here 6 years ago. July 2012, in the middle of the winter, I arrived here. Now, I was obviously based in Gauteng. I used to come here quite often. Bloemfontein was a sub-region of Gauteng. I was the head of Gauteng at that stage. So I had a bit of a soft spot for Bloemfontein. It was nice. I used to come here every now and then, but never, you know, longer than a day or 2. So I arrived here in winter without my wife and kids, staying in a guest house. And obviously working late, got back to the guest house, and I arrived there and I see these little flakes coming down onto my windscreen. And I found my wife and said, what am I doing here? It's like 0 outside. And it was an eye-opener. You know, the cold when it hits your knees, when you live in Pretoria, wow. You're not used to this. I mean, Pretoria's got the best weather in the country. If it had an ocean, it would be better than Cape Town. So, yeah, it was such an eye-opener. But I spent 3 months here on my own in Bloemfontein. And the kids and my wife joined me after the 3rd quarter. But Bloemfontein grows on you, and I enjoy that in that I saw a lot of opportunity for what we as a company and myself had an idea to actually start and actually develop and actually grow the business from. And it's so great because it has the best of both worlds. And I'll give you an example now. You know, if you haven't lived in a place like Gauteng, like and actively worked there, you know, you don't know what it is like to have that extreme rush type of environment. You know, I was living in Pretoria, traveled 54 k's to Sandton every day before the Goud train. Wintertime, leave home, it's dark. Get home, dark. Don't see your kids awake for 2-3 days. Go to gym because to miss the traffic, right? Don't see your garden in the sunlight until Saturdays, Monday to Friday. You get into that rut. Coming to Bloemfontein, completely different story. No traffic things. You can actually spend quality time on different other things. The only disadvantage, though, is that when you put in a full week of effort in Bloemfontein and it's intense, it takes you 2 minutes to get home. or 5 minutes to get home, you don't get wine down time. So that's a big adjustment. But yeah, no, I like Bloemfontein because, you know, of the opportunities that we saw. It's been a growth path for us going here. The people are great. I think it is also a place where there is a lot of development happening now, albeit, you know, not as big as what we see in other provinces also. But it's an exciting place. Certainly in the 6 years that I've been here, you know, I've seen a lot of change happening, a lot of development happening, and a lot of, you know, in the economy, obviously, and also in the business sort of sphere. So I'm enjoying it so far.
That's a lot said from an ex-Capetonian coming to Bloem and says it's actually, no, I think it all boils down to balance and quality of life. You know, a couple of years back, about 20, 25 years back, I was headhunted by an educational company in Joburg. And I went to a meeting at Sunning Hill, and after we had our meeting, on the way out, the CEO said to the rest of the team, listen guys, all right? So we see tomorrow at 4. The guy said, yes. And the other one said, should I pick up breakfast? And on my way back, when I crossed the Val, I just realized, you know, that there's a level of dysfunctionality around having a meeting at 4 in the morning. To travel for 4 hours a day, I'm much more productive in Bloem. While you travel in Gauteng, I can actually sit and work. I can go and watch my kids play sports. It takes me 2, 3, 4 minutes. So me and my wife took a decision many years back, although there were opportunities all over, to actually raise our kids here. From a school perspective, from an education perspective. I do have my thoughts and views on the university where they are on higher education at this stage, but that's, at some stage they were very good. We had one of the best medical faculties in the country. That's almost no longer the case. But the long and the short is, I do think from a quality of life perspective, it's a great place to be. It's great people, they're friendly, you're quite central. When I was in the consulting game, we would get in our car and we could get it all over. The only downside to Bloem is the prices of our flights.
Oh yeah, that is a huge problem. So you both mentioned your families, and this is a question I've actually never asked any of our male speakers. And we heard from Dawn last month that work-life balance doesn't exist. So could we get your opinions on work-life balance?
Sure. It's easier to manage over here. So work-life, because I think, like Danie also said earlier, traveling is not this major obstacle that you sit with in Bloemfontein. So that's already a huge thing out of the way. You have to stay focused on what you actually want to do and structure your time around that. It's easier to get around in Bloemfontein to manage your time with work and obviously in your personal capacity. Much easier. So I enjoy it here, and you know, as opportunity arises, whichever way, if you have an opportunity in your personal capacity, in your or in your work sort of environment, you have to embrace it and just structure your time around it. I just think that in Bloemfontein is so much easier for me. It's much more fluid. I get so much more done. Yeah, and I think it's just so much more conducive to actually get that balance very right.
Gee, I'm a house mouse. I love my wife and my kids. I've got 22 franchises reporting to me, plus a couple of international offices. And if you phone me over the weekends, I won't answer my phone, irrespective of. I truly believe that part of your purpose is to leave a legacy. Part of your purpose should be when you stand, when anyone, especially your family and your kids stand in your grave one day, they would always say, listen, my dad had time for me, my dad made time for me. There was nothing more important than us. And I do think that from a work-life balance perspective, you must always ask yourself, is the price that you are paying worth it? You must really ask yourself that question. If it's one thing driving money, it's one thing driving success, it's one thing driving and aspiring to recognition. It's something else to really be there for your loved ones and to really strike that balance. And I think from a functionality perspective, from a life perspective, it's imperative that you need to strike that balance. And I'm the one, like I said, I'm a house mouse. My best part of Gauteng is crossing the Vaal. And my safest place in the world is in bed behind my wife, sleeping obviously. But that's the best place in the world for me. So, yeah, that's just me.
Splendid. Before we open to Q&A with the audience, one piece of advice that you would give anybody in business, an aspiring entrepreneur, a professional considering jumping ship, just anything that you'd like to share tonight.
I worked with a couple of years ago in 2010, before I came here, I worked with a guy. He was a Swede, Åke Hollander, and this guy was a global head of a very, very big international telco company. He's retired at that stage, and he was doing some consulting work as an expat, and we brought him into the business to sort of guide us through a extreme project that we were busy with. And as a South African a senior person at that stage, I worked very closely with him. And one of the things he said every day to us, know your numbers. It's better to know 10 numbers 100% of the time than 100 numbers 10% of the time. So he was very rigid in how he used to structure his communications and things like that, typical Swede. But it was very enriching actually working with him to learn how he approached. I mean, this guy had at one stage, I think, 60,000 people reporting to him worldwide in this organization through a managed services organization. So he knew how to run a big business. And at the end of the day, when you want to be successful in business, you have to realize that you have to be involved in your business. You need to understand your numbers, you need to be focused, you need to be driven every day and be part of your business. The biggest misconception you can have is if you are perceived to have reached success or seniority, depending on what you perceive yourself, is also that you can actually sit back. That's definitely not the case. That's when you need to be more involved in your business. If you're starting up a business, you need to understand, what is your objectives? You need to understand your competition. You need to understand what your people, if you've got people working for you, what are they thinking? What are they doing? You have to stay focused. Obviously, know your numbers again. And just understand your community. What is your objective at the end of the day? Because that's how you reach success. There's a lot of basics in business that will never change. Doesn't matter which organization you are in. If you're in a big, large Fortune 500 corporate, if you're working in a very entrepreneurial, informal environment, there's a lot of business basics that just don't change. And that is, knowing your numbers, getting involved in your own business, and understanding your product and your community.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. But nobody owns you anything. Unfortunately, in this country, we are stuck with an entitlement and a poverty mind shift. We are in a position where it's the easiest thing in the world to point, in a sense, fingers to a political system which resulted in the haves or the have-nots. Our neighboring countries don't have that privilege almost. Our neighboring countries are far ahead of us when it comes to entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial activity. We are actually scoring as one of the worst countries when it comes to young people wanting to start their businesses. And part of that is simply this poverty and entitlement mindset that they have. So stop blaming the past and realize that nobody owes you anything. That's the one thing. The other thing is just to understand what persistence means. You won't make money in the first month. You might not make money in the first year. You might not make money in the first 5 years. And what keeps you driving through that is persistence and cash flow. To really understand the difference between profit sales, you have to understand the difference between sales, cost of sales, profit, and cash flow. And you need to manage with your cash flow. You need to be in a sense, to be persistent. And you go through that when you are driven by a greater passion and a greater purpose. And for this country to really go forward, we need seismic shifts from a poverty and entitlement mindset towards a more entrepreneurial and in a sense, wealth creation mindset. And there's a couple of things playing actually against that at this stage. Like I said, it's easy to blame the past, and I don't think I know for a fact our social grant system is not doing us any favors at this stage. And from a young people perspective, we've really got issues, and we need serious mind shifts to really drive forward. There's no entrepreneurial culture in this country. Entrepreneurship is not being promoted as an attractive career option. And that's going to haunt us forever if we don't start changing that. Yeah.
I'm just curious, the Startup Pact. I understand that you're trying to help younger people, and that's where we have to start with entrepreneurship. Can you just explain what the Startup Pact is and how you can help younger people? Because that's what we have to look at.
Yeah. All right, if I start on this, I'm going to keep you busy for a while. All right, so let me bear with you guys. I've been involved with entrepreneurship education for many years. And for some reason, if you look at entrepreneurship development for the last 100 years, we don't see any benefits if you look at our youth unemployment rate at this stage, right? So whatever we've been busy with for the last 100 years is not working. And part of this links to what I call the constitutional flaw. The constitutional flaw is simply this. For the last, I don't know how many years, we've been focused on youth development. Youth development constitutionally between 18 and 35. Kids are born with a very natural entrepreneurial mindedness, spirit, and intent. Your little ones love making things, selling things, they play shop. But as they grow older, that entrepreneurial mindset dwindles, and by the time they get to grade 12, it's almost non-existent. Then we try to put them on this entrepreneurship development programs. It's like trying to jumpstart a car with a dead battery. They sit there out of necessity and not out of choice. They sit there because they can't go and further their studies and they are unemployed. They don't sit there because they are entrepreneurial or they got an entrepreneurial mindset. So, and I've been involved with the business school and many IDC, NEF, NYDA, you can name them all. I've been involved in all of those programs. And our success rate on those programs was 1-2%. So I eventually decided to go and look at international best practice. What are the Americans doing? What are the Canadians, North Europeans, Australians? How do you create an entrepreneurial culture in the country? You can't teach entrepreneurship. You can't teach entrepreneurship. I can teach you the theory or the science of business. I can teach you the nuts and bolts. But the entrepreneurial mindset attributes are instilled through repetitive experiential exposure. Repetitive experiential exposure. That's why certain cultures, when they start at age 5 and they stand behind the cash register, at no stage do their parents go and sit them down and say, listen, I need to teach you about entrepreneurship. It's just instilled through repetitive experiential exposure. These mums, with your once-a-year entrepreneurship days, your stalls look pretty. It's gorgeous. It's a mummy project. There's no benefit to this, all right, because it's once a year, your cupcakes, your everything. The kids leave, they're still not understanding the difference between sales, cost of sales, profit, and cash flow. So based on that, I founded Young Entrepreneurs, teaching children ages 7 to 18. Entrepreneurship, financial literacy, employability, and workplace readiness skills. And that purpose that we are driving, I had to scale that purpose. If you can't scale your business, you haven't got a business. So we had to scale that business, and we got 4 legs from a scalability perspective. The one was I franchised the business. The other one was we founded the Young Entrepreneurs Foundation, which is a non-profit and a public benefit organization. We're utilizing CSI funding to get our programs out in the townships. The third one is the BizBox. It's a business in a box. So I would get mums phoning me from Gat Sonder Water and said, listen, I want to expose my kids to young entrepreneurs. We haven't got a franchise close by, anything close by. So it's a do-it-yourself business in a box. We actually got 3 different ones. And you've got an instructional guide here, you've got an instructional video here, there's a little piggy bank, a raw material starter kit to make between 15 and 20 products within this. So there's a selling poster in there, there's a little calculator, there's price tags. So we take you through a step-by-step process, and this is what it says. It's a business for your kid in a box where you can actually, after have done through this program, you have a little business for you going. And then the fourth layer is we started the Young Entrepreneurs Virtual Academy, where we have a virtual classroom setting for kids it's like an online mini business school for children. That was a long answer to a very short question. I apologize.
Okay, my question is coming from my own experience, from what I've been learning and doing in my business. But from your side, do you guys see any potential for like affiliates, young affiliates, people that are not 18, things like that, for them to start doing like courses like this?
I think where we are right now, economically in South Africa, we should embrace every opportunity that we have to actually develop entrepreneurial skills, but also boost economy in South Africa. And it's all about, a product that creates an experience. I want to come back to that, which I sort of spoke about earlier on, and we add the word also enabling, is to say that people live for experiences nowadays. And if you have an entrepreneur, whichever age that you are, and that entrepreneur has a drive and a will and a plan to create an experience for the consumer out there, that is where you generate business. So yes, for sure, I think that we should embrace it. People who, I think irrespective of the age, obviously there are certain legislative environments that one has to look at around that, but we should not discard that, for sure.
Yes, I can keep you busy for a while on this again. All right, so I'm getting so excited about it. All right, long and short is this. A third of our population is younger than 14. There's a tsunami of youth unemployment that's going to hit us that we can't begin to comprehend. Okay? That's the one thing. We are lucky if 37 out of every 100 grade 1s get to matric. We are lucky if 37 out of every 100 grade 1s get to matric. Almost 50% of grade 10s never matriculate. All right. We've got a school system that's totally unable, and the inability is shocking to properly prepare our kids for the world of work and business. We still believe the old premise, go and study hard at school, so that you can go to university, earn a degree, secure yourself financially, retire happy, die and go to heaven. The die and go to heaven part is the only part in that whole equation that's true. That promise is no longer valid. If you don't go and study a profession, stay away from university as far as possible. Okay? That's the one thing. If you're in the school system, and from a parent perspective, understand the inability to properly prepare your kids for the world of work and business. They started the YES program now, the Youth Employment System program. The moment that the minister, our president, Ramaphosa, announced the YES program, all the companies jumped on the YES program. So everyone said, and I'm sure, everyone said, listen, I'll employ somebody. And so, the problem is our formal sector is shrinking, it's not expanding. Now, there's a fundamental flaw with the YES program. It assumes that everyone has got a matric certificate. Go and ask the Department of Basic Education, where are those kids that fall out of the school system? They won't be able to tell you. So linking to your question, it is imperative for us going forward to have a safety net for those kids that fall out of the school system and to start exposing kids from a very, very young age to entrepreneurship and and having an entrepreneurial mindset. On Youth Day, we had 3,500 grade 1s hustling at market days throughout the country. 7-year-olds. There's no hope for them, there's no safety net. If you fall out of the school system in grade 10, you are prone to permanent unemployment, social exclusion, and long-term poverty. And we haven't got any safety net for them of any sort to actually support and help those kids going forward. But innovation and creativity it's inseparable from being an entrepreneur. Because entrepreneurship, like I said, it's not a narrow path. It's not a straight path. It's course correct. If you think you're going to start a business, and within the next month, a business plan, show me a business plan that kept to its promise from a cash flow perspective, from a planning perspective, from any perspective for that matter. It's a document you need for compliance and funding, whatever the case may be. You need to course direct, and that's the one thing that you need to understand from entrepreneurship. And from innovation and creativity perspective, nothing goes as you planned it. And the problem is that very often, the first pothole that we get, in a sense, discouraged. There's not persistence and resilience in terms of that. And then you decide, but listen, this is not for me, entrepreneurship is not for me. It's not a straight line. It's a very, very tough road. And that tough road comes with course correct and adjustments as you go along. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's where innovation and creativity, and to really surround yourself with people that can guide you and assist you in that, and guide you and assisting you to course correct, because that's inevitable. In young entrepreneurs, within scaling our purpose, we decided to franchise. Before any one of you want to franchise your business, speak to me first. It's been an horrific experience, absolutely horrific, but for many reasons. So then we decided, right, how do we scale this further? Impact through the foundation to get to the millions in townships and in previously disadvantaged communities. How do we scale it further? Again, course correct. The biz box, to do it in yourself business box. How do we scale it further? Through the Young Entrepreneurs Virtual Academy. So you need adjustment. And the moment that you no longer adjust, or you think you've arrived, then you really got problems. Because I promise you, your competition is not thinking that way about it. So never at any point you need to feel, but listen, I've arrived now, everything is sorted, everything is going smooth, no innovation and creativity, no adjustments. If you get to that point, you are really in big trouble.
Thank you, Danie and Wiaan. I would just like to know, do you experience that mentorship has led to your success, or do you consider it as a nice to have?
Yes, I think mentorship plays a big role in any career success, and growth also. It obviously has to be applied in the correct way. And there needs to be a bond between the mentor and the mentee. It's definitely something, I encourage, and I've been in that fortunate situation also to be on both sides. And when you create a bond and you're actually committed to that, it actually grows you inside the business. Like I said, I have a great passion actually speaking to people who've actually much older than me and trying to learn from that. And also I think that falls in line with actually working with people who've actually older in business also, if I can put it that way. Because I think there's a lot of skills to be actually learned. And it's not about the actual technicalities of a business, learning how to do accountancy or this or that. It's learning about experiences. Because within any business, you go through a set of experience also. And you learn from that, and that's how you improve yourself in business every day. So yes, I definitely agree with that.
I agree with him as well. The only thing is, being an entrepreneur is very, very lonely. It's very, very lonely. And it's best you need somebody to talk to. You need some sort of an outlet. And if that's through a mentor, great. I'm one of those personalities. I hate authority. I hate institutions. I'm the worst guy to employ. I won't listen. And I'm a wise ass. So normally when you say something, I would say, but I know. Or I know better. Or I've been there. And if you have that attitude, it's the wrong attitude. I realize that. I know that. So I'm a terrible guy to mentor. At some stage, I tried to employ an action coach or a coach for me. It was a terrible experience for this guy. And at some stage, I said, listen, I'm sorry. And he said, listen, but you are uncoachable. I said, I know. So there's value in that, but you must open yourself up to views. Don't have a I know it all attitude. Learn and use it as a klankbord. Soundboard, that's it. I'm from the Free State. I only got 1,000 English words. We are almost running out of my English words at this stage. So after 8 things are going to go terribly wrong, all right? I apologize for that.
So, Danie, I just want to link on to that, what you said. I mean, it's so true. I mean, we've all heard that saying, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. All right? And so just to link on to the mentorship thing, you know, go find that smart guy. And whichever way the relationship is, either mentor, mentee, or whatever works, you know, that's what actually, that will enrich you.
Wonderful. Well, that concludes the fireside chat for tonight. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.